Wukong is a beast. Black Myth the video game is a masterpiece that copies a lot of the similar events that happen in the Journey to the West novels, but this video game takes place after that stuff. But a lot of the same lore still applies. We all know Wukong's a beast, but believe it or not, there's other beings in this universe that's strong, that exist in this lore, like Erlang Shen. He appeared in the game too, and just like the books, he's one of the few beings that can actually scrap it out with Wukong himself in raw power. And apparently in their history, he's one of the few beings that has bested Wukong before. Just like Wukong being strong because of his genetics, one could say Erlang is strong too because he's a divine being that he himself even states none other than himself can challenge Wukong into a one-on-one duel. But yeah, let's talk about Erlang Shen. He has a base form, this is how he normally looks, but then he has a beastly transformation to where he can change in size, grow super large, which I'm gonna get back to in the same video as well. I would also like to mention when it comes to Erlang, when I'm comparing him to Wukong in this video, I am comparing him to Wukong that doesn't have a Buddha hood. I want to make that clear. So technically, he's not like an omnipresent being and stuff, but like he can fight Wukong. One could say base Wukong. When it comes to his gear, he seems to be able to use a lot of different type of weapons, so there's definitely implications he's a skilled fighter. He uses a spear, you see right here, and even has a blade on his back. We see when he does melee combat, he will mix both of these in at the same time to kind of make his attacks hard to predict with this gear. And apparently, even in his giant form, he can even use a blade, or one can argue increase the size of his blade, or a different blade entirely maybe. If one of his weapons happens to get broke, he can either get a new one or summon a new one at will if he wishes. He can increase the size of his weapons, like increasing the size of his axe to strike harder with it. Just to give you a visual perspective on how big he can make his axe and stuff compared to normal sized beings. He states his sword spans the 9 skies, swifter than shooting stars, like implying that his sword can get really big or hit you from very far away or something. He can summon a lot of different blades at the same time to make it hard to counter him too. And he can like fire multiple blades at you at the same time in the middle of him striking you with his normal melee hits. He seems to be able to use every major element like lightning. When it comes to blast power, it seems he can produce fire or heat of some sort at will from his mouth. We see lightning spark here while even transforming into a bird, might I add, to fly. Like right here, we see him transform into like a tiger, an abnormally large tiger, might I add. Like, I don't want to say he can do everything Wukong can do, but it freaking feels like it. Because just like how Wukong can make clones of himself, like you see these laser beams right here, he can make clones of himself too, like Wukong. So yeah, he's pretty versatile. Creatures here apparently summon during combat. In the books, they label these beings like celestial dogs he can control and summon. He has a third eye. It seems he can shoot out literal laser beams of light or blast. He can summon a ton of swords, then add that to his energy projection to where it just gets crazy. Not counting his just weapons, there's implications he can put energy around his like legs or something without necessarily allowing his weapons to increase his strikes with energy around his limbs and such. And when it comes to his fighting speed, he seems to have some decent burst speed to where it looks like he vanishes or a streak of lightning or some crap. But yeah, as expected, he's not the main character of this game. He doesn't have as much screen time as, of course, the main character Wukong himself, the destined one, of course. But yeah, I hope you find this video entertaining still. So right off the gate, physically speaking, of course, he's way stronger than what he actually looks. There's even statements that talk about move the mountains. Erlang himself stated, like, I know he's probably using puns, but yeah, these things should be taken literal. This is just classic Journey to the West stuff. Not to mention we actually literally seen these characters, Erlang included, grow ridiculously large, even bigger than mountains. Like, okay, you see this situation right here? Like, look at the surrounding area. Like, they're around mountains. Like, they're the normal sized beings right here, right? Just giving you a perspective of the outside area. Like, they're literally around these mountains. Just from their size alone, Erlang included, Wukong and Erlang both can grow so large to where they make mountains even look small in comparison to them. Like, look how thick they look. Like, they're actually towering over mountains. Erlang in his lion hybrid form is up there with him too. This should by default just kind of give you an idea of how strong they would have to be just from being this large. Not to mention we've actually seen Erlang lift up beings that are mountain size or bigger than mountains too. One could argue he's even bigger than Wukong in this particular situation while they're both large. And just to give you some more angles of how big they are compared to the landscape, like they're literally taller than mountains. So when you hear Erlang say statements like, move the mountains, you kind of believe it. You know what I mean? So if you was to put a mountain or two on his back, yeah, he would be able to support that kind of weight. And I personally think he would be that strong, even without necessarily being that big. The reason why I'm saying this, he probably can lift all of this weight without even necessarily being large, just in his normal human form, is because the weight of his hits imply this. Because, yeah, we know he can strike really hard. Yeah, he has weapons, but without his weapons, he can just strike with a lot of weight with punches or kicks and such. The weapons just kind of help with piercing damage and stuff. But, yeah, he can just hit hard with blunt force with just punches or kicks. Like in this occasion, when you see him hit Wukong, they make like a gigantic shockwave with his hits. Yeah, blowing these beings back with just his raw striking power. So yeah, him being able to do all that lifting mountain stuff, large mountains while he's small form, makes sense. Doesn't necessarily need this large form to do it, you know? So yeah, he can lift with billions of tons of force or more, strike with that similar force, vice versa. In small form, he'd be able to hit with mountain trembling force, you know, or he'd be able to slice a mountain down the middle. That's believable, right? Even in this small form, it doesn't matter how he does it. I mean, matter of fact, we literally seen him do this very thing when he made his axe big, like the collateral of his cutting power with this blade. The shockwave hit so hard it traveled that far away to split the mountain in half. So yeah, obviously, it doesn't matter which form, he can still do it either or with his cutting power. Not to mention comparing him to Wukong to some degree without Buddhahood, it's still impressive, even in this video game version, because this video game history has a lot of similarities to the book itself. Like the video game mentions, just like the books, like the similar mountains like Mount Sumeru, the Bodhisattva, and they even mention events that happen in the book. So yeah, it's similar stuff that happened in this video game too, like how Wukong got sealed under a mountain. Similar events. And I'm pretty sure we don't have to convince each other of him being able to rival Wukong to some degree is ridiculously impressive. In collateral, cratering a mountain, by the way. This leads me to talk about the power hierarchy. Like, there's a lot of deities, a lot of powerful beings, and you can kind of get an idea of how strong Erlang is by his rank and the beings he's technically above by default. Like, when it comes to the celestial ranks, there's very few that rank similar to him, and many are below him. And Wukong was the one rival he relished. Just like the books, beings that are living embodiment of constellation rank type beings, like, you know, the 28 constellations, this kind of stuff appears in the game too. Just like the books, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because beings that are living embodiment of constellations, apparently, Erlang has statements that suggest that he can do far more than just level mountains and islands and such. Like I already mentioned, first off, Wukong is his rival. That already says a lot about his power level. And similar to the books, Wukong in the game, this is like literally taken word for word from the actual books. So yeah, that's why I say the books and the games are so similar. It's stated that Wukong can shift the stars themselves. Erlang literally says even stars shift in his wrath, which is consistent with Wukong stuff in the books, and the game repeats what the book says. And then this same stuff is stated again, I shake the stars in the sky. More than one star, by the way. So in a weird way, you can kind of reference stuff that happened in books that the game doesn't necessarily mention because they literally have quotes like this that come directly from the book, stating he should be able to alter the course of planets and stars, right? Doesn't this look familiar? Because basically this same quote verbatim is in the game, guys. Like, it's literally almost word for word. It's probably not word for word only because of different translations, translators and stuff. It's almost the same thing, basically. Similar to how Wukong can shake more than one star, this same concept has to apply Erlang based on the weight of his swings or his strikes. This basically means if you can shake more than one star, by default, just having this kind of raw hits to shake stars, you would, by default, would be able to hit hard enough to destroy planets like the Earth, even larger planets that are bigger than Earth, like Jupiter, you will be able to quake or destroy by default based on this Erlang. This should apply for. The weight of his hits will more than likely feel like a whole solar system or a multitude of planets falling on your face, basically. Shaking stars, the weight of his swings would be able to easily mess up over hundreds of thousands of Earth-sized planets if he can literally shake more than one star. Wukong has moves that they call the Earth Shatterer, Earth Shattering. So him being able to hit hard enough to break planets like Earth apart is like not even a question at this point, at that. Remember how I brought up how there's quotes from the game that are directly from the book, like implying same continuity, same stuff happened, similar to the book, all that same stuff happened in the game. You know what I mean? So when you look at stuff like this, these statements should be taken seriously when you realize that there's statements from the book all over the game. Even on weapon descriptions, they do quotes from the book, beings being able to shake the sky, and beings being able to withstand attacks or produce attacks that can split the universe apart, similar to the book. Erlang being a rival to Wukong and stating he's been waiting for this specific monkey, like, you know, Wukong's strongest form. He was waiting for this form because he wants somebody that can push him. Yet being a rival to the same being that can withstand stuff that can split the universe apart. This kind of stuff would imply that they're way more than just star shattering, rather than they should by default be galaxy shattering. By default, they will be able to produce blasts that can destroy millions or billions of galaxies if they can withstand attacks or blast with attacks that can split the universe apart like the books. Or the thought of Erlang and Wukong being able to blast with force that can split an infinite mass of universe apart. That sounds ludicrous. These characters' power gets so ridiculous that it's kind of hard to measure. Heck, you know how in the books, it stated how Wukong, Erlang can kind of grow like Wukong. So that's why I'm bringing this up, like their rivals. In the book, they talk about how Wukong can grow so big, if he wanted to, he can fill the universe. What if Erlang could do that too in the games too, like in the books? You see what I mean? Not everybody believes the universe is actually infinite size, but even if you wanted to say that it was an observable universe, a finite size universe, that would still be way bigger than a whole bunch of galaxies if we assume he can get as big as that, just like Wukong from the books. But then the thought of an infinite universe sounds crazier, being able to get infinite in size. But what do you guys think? Do you believe Erlang is close to Wukong before the Buddha stuff? He has to be, narratively speaking. Even though I do want to make it clear, if I had to give somebody the edge, I would definitely give Wukong the advantage. Because at the end of the day, Wukong did overpower him. You know what I mean? He's one of those characters that you got to ask the question, what can't he do? But he also believes you should hit that like button. It would really help out a lot, guys. These videos ain't easy. Erlang's strong, though. But thanks, donators. It helps out. Erlang Shen. I'm glad you are enjoying your time on the channel. Make sure you check out the playlist on the channel to see other How Strong videos. If you like what this channel is offering, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and I will see you guys later.